Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world with me, Deepika, coming up in the next 1 hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi participates in Somnath Amrut Mahotsav, releases commemorative coin and stamp marking 75 years since the post-independence restoration of Somnath Temple. Prime Minister Modi urges judicious use of fuel, postponement of coal purchases and foreign travel to strengthen the economy amid global supply chain crisis. Trump rejects Iranian response to US peace proposal, calls it totally unacceptable. Tehran demands war reparations and asserts sovereignty over Hormuz. Thailand's former Premier Thaksin Shinawatra released from jail on parole. And in sports, Barcelona sweep past arch rivals Real Madrid to retain La Liga title, claims 29th Spanish top flight title. The minister supported the call given by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to conserve fuel and restrict gold purchases and limit their foreign travels as well, underlining the importance of preserving foreign exchange.
Since the war is now still going on, and yesterday's developments we all know that truce is still far away, we as citizens, as our Prime Minister has asked all of us to, can reduce our expenditure on everything that requires foreign exchange to be spent. And in our lives, in our own ways of working, we can identify whatever we can do to preserve the foreign exchange. Simultaneously, we must also earn the foreign exchange more and more. Both things have to go in parallel. So I'll request all of you to take cognizance of Honorable Prime Minister's call to the nation, and within your own means, within your own enterprises, within your own businesses, try to do whatever best you can.
Dr. Amit Kumar, economist. Good afternoon, Dr. Kapoor. Thank you so much for joining us here on DD India News Hour. Now, Prime Minister Modi's appeal comes at a time when the world is staring into an economic crisis because of different reasons, including the West Asia one. And considering the current West Asia crisis, tell us why this is important and what immediate benefits can we see as soon as we adopt all these measures suggested by Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
First, we need to really understand, the crisis that we are facing right now is fairly stupendous, or it's fairly big. And it's not a crisis which India is facing, it's a crisis that the world is facing, especially because of the Iran and the US war. And it is having a huge impact on the availability of oil across the world. If you really talk about the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, it carries close to about 20 million barrels of oil a day. And that is roughly a quarter of world's seaborne oil trade. And if that is the case, and that means there is a huge supply situation that is actually emerging out of that location. And when you say that the truce is possibly not having a chance, it seems that the war is going to continue for some time, and it is continuing to have a huge impact on economies across the world. The other thing, if you really look at beyond the oil, there is also the LPG that comes from Qatar, and those the LPG plants have actually been affected because of the war. So this is a very big thing that is happening. And across the world, what we see is that higher crude prices will worsen the import bills for countries, and it is effectively having a huge impact on India as well. And if we are able to do what the Prime Minister has appealed, there are 2 or 3 significant appeals there. The most significant one is going to be, or is, the reduction in usage of cars. That means or vehicles. If you're able to move people from, say, vehicular traffic to public transport, that has a huge benefit in terms of the consumption of oil itself. Oil in it is 90% of India's oil requirement is imported. So that means there is a huge issue of sorts. And if we continue to import oil, or what is going to happen is it is going to have a huge detrimental effect on our currency itself. As of now, when we really talk about the Indian rupee, it is trading at about 95 rupees 20 paisa as of today, as of now. So if that is the case, that means the oil imports are already creating a pressure, and it becomes a very significant economic decision as well. And as an appeal that if we are able to reduce, it is going to have a huge impact on how things really happen. If I'm able to say reduce my consumption of oil by about 20% across the country by adopting measures like say work from home and people just not traveling irrelevant or doing irrelevant travel, if that happens, that means the impact on the rupee is going to be very significant, because if the rupee weakens, all the imports that are going to be there are going to become more expensive and so on and so forth. So this appeal directly is an economic appeal to the country. And I really look at this as a very significant appeal, as the Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri also made at one point in time, that we have to leave food for a day. I think it's a kind of crisis which is not of the making of India, but of the making of President Trump. Sorry for saying that, but then President Trump has created this crisis for the world. But this is where countries like India will have to really augur and come together to really face the situation. The other thing that the Prime Minister said, and it has two parts of the story. Like one of them is that to reduce the consumption of fertilizers. If I'm able to reduce the consumption of fertilizers, that means I'm importing less and less petroleum products. This also has a second order benefit. And the second order benefit is that you're effectively making your farms clean. India is also facing a crisis of sorts in terms of that larger usage of fertilizers. If I'm able to move towards natural farming, it has a huge impact. You might see certain set of issues or with productivity for a short while, but then eventually in a longer term, it's a very important decision that we have to take as a collective nation. This is actually a reform agenda of sorts. Right. I don't see it as an appeal. I see it as a very big reform agenda that the Honorable Prime Minister has actually talked about. And there's another thing that he talks about is in terms of, say, gold, in terms of like whether we are able to reduce consumption of gold. If you really look at it, India's total merchandise imports that happen, 10% of it is close to, or 10% of that amount is about gold itself. So if I'm able to reduce that import of gold as well for a certain point in time, that also helps. So maybe there is a consumer thing that can happen, wherein what the consumer could do is that instead of buying new gold, let me exchange it if I'm required. Non-essential gold buying could actually be reduced and so on and so forth. So that is where I'm looking at it. So it's a very sound appeal that he is making, looking at the economic situation that the world is facing and what is beneficial for India.
Dr. Kapoor, you're an economist, and for the benefit of our viewers, they would like to really understand it in layman language. Help us understand how reducing gold purchases and avoiding foreign travels and destination weddings will strengthen the economy by conserving vital foreign reserves. Dr. Kapoor.
So, like whenever you really talk about, say, the demand for rupee or demand for dollar, it's a simple trading situation. Whether you're buying gold or whether you're traveling internationally, you're effectively spending dollars. And if you're spending dollars, that means I have to buy a dollar. And when I'm buying, the demand for the dollar increases, that means dollar will effectively become more expensive. So these are small order effects that are going to have a better impact or a positive impact on the dollar rupee exchange situation as well. So if you're able to do that, what happens is that people are going to be, they're doing non-essential travel or non-essential buying of gold. That is not required. You're effectively having a positive impact on the economy per se. In fact, when you talk about gold itself, the kind of consumption that we do on gold is so huge. And it is like, if I remember the numbers correctly, it is close to about $25 billion of gold that we are actually buying each year. Then if you talk about travel spends, it is close to about $18 to $20 billion of travel spends that we do each year. So these are non-essential items effectively. If I'm able to reduce $40 to $50 billion in terms of, say, spends on non-essential travel and non-essential buying of gold, it will have a positive impact in terms of how the rupee behaves. Because if rupee depreciates, what happens is that it is going to have an impact on inflationary pressures can actually get created. So I think the Prime Minister is making a very strong appeal and a very smart appeal for us as citizens. He's not wanting to say that, oh, government is wanting to do this step or whatever. It's an appeal for us as citizens. In fact, this is the time when we as Indians have to say is what we can do for the country at this point and really help really move things forward.
Now, this is also the 12th year of Prime Minister Narendra Modi-led government in India. And over the decade, India's economy has transformed into the world's fastest growing major economy as well. But will the current push anyway put an impact to India's aim of becoming third largest economy?
So you're like, when you talk about the third largest economy, India will become the third largest economy. Like there is this depreciation of the rupee that has happened. So maybe we are the fifth largest economy today. I think it's a short-term situation that we are really looking at, and it's a war-induced kind of a situation. India will definitely become the third largest economy. We are continuing to grow at about say 6%, 7%, maybe even higher than that, because the basic macroeconomic conditions in India are there for the growth. So it is not that India is not going to grow. India will continue to grow. We have the basic antecedents. If you really look at the kind of spends that we have done in infrastructure over a period of time, that is going to have huge impact on India's productivity. The production link incentive schemes that are there, they are already having an impact. So I don't think the problem is going to be that India is going to slow down per se. India will continue to grow at about 7%. I don't see a slowdown happening there. It's only a question now that how smartly we do it. When India grows at 7%, but if the rupee depreciates, that means it has an impact on our competitiveness itself. We should not let that happen. And that is exactly what the Prime Minister is trying to say.
India also has the aim and the vision to become a developed nation, Viksit Bharat, by the year 2047. And Apada Mein Avsar, which means opportunity at the time of crisis, has always been the underlining force behind India's growth. We have seen that during COVID-19 pandemic as well. And in his appeal, Prime Minister Narendra Modi once again stressed on pushing vocal for local and buying Swadeshi products, as you also mentioned. Help us understand how will this bolster job opportunities for the local people of the country while giving a major push to India's aim of becoming self-reliant.
Oh, so like the Prime Minister has been saying it for some time now that we have to be Atmanirbhar. And Atmanirbharta is a very important construct in terms of like how India needs to move ahead. If we become self-reliant on a certain set of things, so when we talk about, India has become self-reliant on food, and that's a very important thing that has happened over a period of time. If we become self-reliant on other things, like say energy, if we are able to build, create our own energy, it suddenly reduces our import bill. If we are able to manufacture our own things, it reduces our dependence on the world outside. So when he says Atmanirbharta, there are multiple set of things that that have happened within the country over the last few years, especially if you talk about as to how we manufacture our vehicles. When we are starting to manufacture things like iPhone within the country itself, we are manufacturing larger and larger products sets over a period of time. Like look at the pharmaceutical industry itself. Look at how things have really improved with EVs. What it does is that it makes our industry resilient, creates jobs over a period of time. Of course, we can do faster. And when you said Apada Mein Avsar, this is exactly a point in time when government can actually bring in some very smart reforms, especially say the labor codes, which have already been cleared, but now the rules can get announced. We can actually make sure that we announce better set of reforms which can actually give impetus to the industry itself. There are the availability of finance for say priority lending can actually increase etc. So what we are really seeing is that this is an opportunity for creating that second degree reforms. But I must admit, if you really look at India's economic trajectory, since 2013, we have actually had a period when reforms have been at the fastest. The only question now is going to be that how we implement it together as a country. And that implementation, government has done its bit. We have to really work on, as the corporate sector, as citizens, to really move forward with it. When you really talk about, say, in terms of, say, implementation, like a very simple thing like, say, R&D. 70% of India's R&D investments are done by the government of India. It is now time that it's the private sector which actually goes out and does the R&D investments. Government can only do so much. It is now our responsibility to be creative, to invest, to innovate, and really create those opportunities in terms of manufacturing, etc. But I think there are also two things that the government is doing from a social perspective, which is very phenomenal. Like we are getting our healthcare sector upgraded. Like the way we managed our COVID crisis is an exceptional example of how a healthcare system works. The other thing is focus on education through the new education policy itself. So on, say, the economic progress, yes, and there is also this whole huge focus on social progress. And both these things are coming hand in hand. It is, I think it's rather unfortunate the way the world is facing crisis after crisis. I think the world's been a fairly dynamic, difficult place after 2018, especially with COVID and then the Ukraine war happening and now this Iran war that is actually happening, and which have been absolutely not necessary at all. It's a wound that has been inflicted by some people in the world. And I think the earlier they realize, the better it gets for the world and people across the planet.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Amit Kapoor, for joining us and giving our viewers a rounded perspective on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's appeal to the nation and how is it going to make India not only self-reliant, but we will also become smart citizens of the country. Moving on now. India celebrates National Technology Day on the 11th of May, commemorating the 1998 Pokhran-2 nuclear tests, the successful flight of the Hansa-3 aircraft and the testing of the Trishul missile. The day honours India's scientific achievements and the innovators driving the nation's technological progress. DD India's Taposh Bhattacharya brings us this report. Take a look.
India's journey as a global technology powerhouse began with a defining moment in 1998. Every year on May 11th, the nation celebrates National Technology Day, marking the success of Pokhran-2, also known as Operation Shakti. On this day, India conducted a series of nuclear tests in Rajasthan's Pokhran Desert, showcasing its scientific strength, strategic capability, and technological self-reliance to the world. Together, these milestones highlight India's growing strength in defense, aerospace, and scientific innovation. But this day is more than just a remembrance of technological achievements. It's a tribute to the scientists, engineers, innovators, and researchers who continue to shape India's future through technology and innovation. From space mission to digital payments, from artificial intelligence to renewable energy, India's technological progress is transforming lives and creating global impact. As India moves towards becoming a developed nation, technology remains the driving force behind growth, security, healthcare, education, and sustainability. The National Technology Day reminds us that innovation is not just about machines or invention. It's about empowering the people and building a stronger nation. On May 11th, let's celebrate the spirit of innovation, salute our scientific community, and inspire the next generation to lead India into a brighter and a smarter future. With camera person Kara, this is Taposh Bhattacharya for DD India from Delhi.
Time for a quick and short break, but still to come on the other side. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas rejects Putin's suggestion of appointing former German Chancellor as European negotiator for Ukraine talks. Over 90 passengers from virus-hit cruise ship safely repatriated through coordinated international efforts.
US launched a bombing campaign against Iran. The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you. You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday offered prayers at Somnath Temple, the first of the 12 Jyotirlings. Prime Minister Modi participated in Somnath Amrut Mahotsav, marking 75 years since the inauguration of the restored Somnath Temple. As part of the celebrations, Prime Minister Modi performed a special Kumbh Abhishekam using the holy water brought from 11 sacred pilgrimage sites from across the country. A ceremonial flag hoisting also took place amid traditional rituals and religious chants at the temple premises. Extensive preparations were also made for the mega event, with the temple beautifully decorated to welcome devotees and dignitaries. A Chetak helicopter showered flower petals over the temple during the ceremony. Prime Minister Modi also released a commemorative stamp and coin commemorating the rich legacy and spiritual significance of 75 years of Somnath.
40 ग्राम शुद्ध चांदी से बना है और ये सिक्का मंदिर की भव्य दिव्य सांस्कृतिक विरासत की याद युगों-युगों.
Addressing the event, Prime Minister Modi also highlighted that the restoration of Somnath Temple was a historic moment symbolizing India's civilizational resurgence.
75 साल पहले आज के ही दिन सोमनाथ मंदिर की पुनर्स्थापना ये कोई साधारण अवसर नहीं था। अगर 1947 में भारत आजाद हुआ था तो 1951 में सोमनाथ की प्राण प्रतिष्ठा ने भारत की स्वतंत्र चेतना का उद्घोष किया था।
Prime Minister Modi also spoke about India's successful nuclear tests conducted in Pokhran on the 11th of May in the year 1998, highlighting the nation's scientific strength and capability.
11 मई 1998 यानी आज के ही दिन देश ने पोखरण में परमाणु परीक्षण किया था। देश ने 11 मई को पहले 3 परमाणु परीक्षण किए। हमारे वैज्ञानिकों ने भारत के सामर्थ्य को, भारत की क्षमता को वैज्ञानिकों ने दुनिया के सामने रखा।
The Surya Kiran aerobatic team of the Indian Air Force staged a thriller air show over Somnath Temple, featuring synchronized formations, daring maneuvers, tricolor smoke trails and sky patterns like Y symbol for youth and a heart shape, creating a patriotic spectacle over the sacred city. Prime Minister Modi also visited an exhibition at the temple premises showcasing the history and reconstruction of the Somnath Temple. Titled From Destruction to Development, the exhibition featured LED displays, archival material and photographs tracing the temple's journey. Earlier in the day, Prime Minister also held a road show en route to the Somnath Temple. Artists from different parts of the country, including West Bengal, performed traditional dances at designated spots alongside the route. During his road show before entering the temple premises, Prime Minister paid tribute to the statue of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, honouring his crucial role in the reconstruction of the temple after independence. Moving on to international updates now. Well, US President Donald Trump on Sunday rejected Iran's response to a US proposal for peace talks, dashing hopes for an imminent end to the 10-week conflict. Within hours, the Iranian proposal's release, Trump dismissed it with a post on social media. Without providing any details on Tehran's counter-proposal, he called it totally unacceptable. Donald Trump also issued a sharp rebuke of Iran, accusing the country of decades of deception and criticizing past US leadership, particularly former President Barack Obama, in a post on his Truth Social platform. Iran, in its latest proposal, seeks to end the war on all the fronts, including in Lebanon, where Israel is fighting the Iranian-backed Hezbollah group, and to ensure the security of shipping. Iran's Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei issued new and decisive directives for the continuation of operations and the powerful confrontation with the enemies while meeting with the head of the Joint Military Command. Oil prices surged on Monday after President Trump rejected Iran's response to a US peace proposal, raising fears that the conflict could now drag on and further disrupt the global supply chain. The international oil benchmark, Brent crude, rose 2.3% to $103.45 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate climbed more than 1.8% to $97.24. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in an interview that Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium must be taken out before the US-Israeli war against Iran can be considered over. Israeli leader responded when asked on how the uranium could be removed.
I think it accomplished a great deal, but it's not over because there's still nuclear material, enriched uranium, that has to be taken out of Iran. There's still enrichment sites that have to be dismantled. There are still proxies that Iran supports. There are ballistic missiles that they still want to produce. Now, we've degraded a lot of it, but all of that is still there, and there's work to be done.
Ahead of the European Union foreign ministers meeting in Brussels, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas rejected a suggestion by Russian President Vladimir Putin that former German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder could represent Europe in future talks with Moscow on European security arrangements.
First, if we give the right to Russia to appoint a negotiator on our behalf, that would not be very wise. And second, I think Gerhard Schröder has been the high-level lobbyist for Russian state-owned companies. So it's clear why Putin wants him to be the person, so that actually, he would be sitting on both sides of the table.
A French woman repatriated from a cruise ship struck by Hantavirus has tested positive with the rare disease, and it has been confirmed by France's health minister on Monday. Now, this rare Hantavirus outbreak unfolded over several weeks on a cruise ship during its voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. Take a look at the timeline of the events.
On April 1st, the expedition ship left Argentina for Antarctica. Days later, a Dutch passenger fell ill and died on board from respiratory distress. After the ship reached St. Helena, the man's wife also became sick and later died in Johannesburg. A British passenger was evacuated to intensive care, while a German passenger developed symptoms and died on May 2nd. On 3rd of May, Cape Verde refused the ship permission to dock as the WHO confirmed 1 lab-tested case and 5 suspected infections. Spain agreed to receive the vessel in Tenerife on May 6th, and the ship began sailing toward the Canary Islands. By May 7th, suspected cases had been hospitalized in the Netherlands, while Spanish passengers were transferred to a military hospital in Madrid. On May 10th, 18 passengers departed the Canary Islands for the United States. The same day, 22 British passengers were taken to Arrow Park Hospital near Liverpool for an initial isolation period. UK health authorities have said passengers and crew will be monitored for up to 72 hours, after which they must isolate at home for 45 days. On May 10th, evacuees reached the Netherlands, while a separate flight carrying 4 Canadians landed in Quebec on Sunday. On the same day, an aircraft carrying 3 Turkish nationals left Tenerife on Sunday as part of evacuation efforts to different countries. While on Sunday, Ireland also evacuated 2 of its citizens using an Air Corps aircraft. On May 11th, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services said, among 17 Americans evacuated from a hantavirus-affected cruise, one had mild symptoms and another tested mildly positive for the Andes strain of the virus. The final 2 flights to evacuate passengers will depart on Monday afternoon. One flight from Australia will carry 6 passengers and another from the Netherlands will take 18 passengers. World Health Organization has recommended a 42-day quarantine for all passengers from the boat. Bureau Report, DD India.
The Dutch MV cruise ship is at the center of an international health alert after 6 confirmed hantavirus cases and 3 deaths. This ship arrived in Spain's Canary Islands. Health officials say the situation is under control and strict medical protocols are in place. The 2 Indian crew members that are on board will be evacuated directly to the Netherlands. Our local correspondent Atman Sandhu reports more. Take a look.
Cruise ship carrying the deadly hantavirus has just anchored off the coast of Spain's Canary Islands. The ship is carrying 150 passengers from over 28 countries, including 2 Indians. Local Spanish authorities have confirmed against the docking of the ship at the port of Tenerife to minimize contact with the local population. Health officials have confirmed that currently all passengers on board are asymptomatic, but earlier 3 seriously ill individuals were airlifted for treatment in Europe. Passengers from the MV Honduras are being evacuated in phases, and hazmat-suited teams are screening passengers on board before transferring them by small boats and bubble buses directly to Tenerife South Airport. The World Health Organization is coordinating closely with Spain, and Madrid has agreed to help strictly on humanitarian medical grounds.
Our government and all the people in charge has to inform us about it more deeply. And of course, we are concerned and really worried about the symptoms, about the long-term causes that can affect us.
Spain's health ministry says foreign passengers will be repatriated directly to their home countries, while Spanish nationals will undergo quarantine in Madrid under military supervision. Experts meanwhile caution against panic, saying hantavirus is far less contagious than COVID-19 and requires prolonged close contact for transmission. Local authorities insist that emergency medical teams, isolation units, and screening systems are in place already.
I'm sorry for the people that are sick and for the people that have passed away, but it's a high risk for Spanish people. And even though the Canary Island people, and they are flying to Madrid, which is, even if the hospital is very well controlled and everything is under control, but the risk is always there.
This decision has sparked political tension as local leaders argue they were not consulted adequately beforehand and also feared that the arrival of the ship could traumatize the residents that are still haunted by the COVID-19 lockdowns. For now, Tenerife is geared up for one of the most difficult maritime health operations that Europe has ever seen. This is Atman Sandhu in Spain for DD India. A cruise.
Thailand's former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra was released from prison on Monday after about 8 months behind the bars following a court ruling that deemed he had wrongfully stayed in hospital to avoid jail time. Hundreds of supporters who had thronged outside Bangkok's Klong Prem Central Prison greeted him on his release, having served about 2/3 of his sentence before being paroled. After 15 years in self-exile, Thaksin returned to Thailand in 2023 to face an 8-year sentence for conflicts of interest and abuse of power while Prime Minister from 2001 to 2006 that had been commuted to 1 year by the King. You're watching DD India News Hour, and now it's time to get you all the latest action from the world of sports, to begin with soccer. Barcelona secured their 29th Spanish League title after beating bitter rivals Real Madrid 2-0 in the El Clasico showdown at Camp Nou. Marcus Rashford and Ferran Torres struck in the first half to help Hansi Flick's side clinch La Liga for the second consecutive year while consigning Madrid to a trophyless season. The Catalans, who only needed to avoid defeat, now have an unassailable 14-point lead over second-placed Real Madrid with 3 matches remaining. This was only the second time the outcome of La Liga has been decided directly by the result of a Clásico, with Real Madrid winning their first title in 1932 after a draw with Barcelona. And with this victory, Flick's side emphatically shrugged off their Champions League exit in April, roaring back with a statement victory. Fans took to the streets in wild celebration after Barcelona swatted aside Real Madrid at a roaring Camp Nou to claim the La Liga title. Crowds filled major areas of the city, thousands of supporters dressed in Barcelona colours, celebrating the victory with flags, flares and songs. The triumph capped a dominant campaign in which they lost only 4 league matches. And Arsenal held on to beat West Ham by 1-0 after Callum Wilson's 95th minute equaliser was ruled out for a foul on David Raya. Leandro Trossard's late winner set the Gunners on course for a crucial victory in the Premier League title race, but with time nearly up, Wilson fired home from a corner to send the London stadium into a frenzy. However, the video assistant referee spotted the arm of West Ham's Pablo across Raya's neck as the Arsenal goalkeeper fumbled the initial delivery into the box. Referee Chris Kavanagh was sent to the monitor by video assistant referee Darren England and disallowed the goal. The Gunners are now 5 points clear of Manchester City with a game in hand, while West Ham stay in the drop zone. And India is all set to face host China in the quarterfinals of the AFC Under-17 Women's Asian Cup 2026 at Zhuzhou Sports Centre Stadium today. India made history by qualifying for knockout stage for the first time by delivering a clinical 4-0 victory over Lebanon. Their place in the final 8 was confirmed following a goalless draw between the Philippines and Chinese Taipei, allowing India to progress as one of the best third-place sides. Now, this achievement puts India just 1 victory away from their first ever FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup qualification based on merit. Standing in their way is a formidable Chinese side that has won every match and is yet to concede a goal in the tournament. Moving on. One of the major successes of Operation Sindoor was that Pakistani suicide drones were unable to breach India's air defense cover. Watch our correspondent Nandita Tagar's report on Army's air defense guns from Bhuj, Gujarat.
The L-70 gun of the Army Air Defense is always used to protect very vital strategic assets, which could include airports, railway stations, civilian facilities, VVIP residences and offices, also military installations, cantonments, etc. This unit of the Army Air Defense Regiment actually shot down 5 Pakistani drones of Chinese and Turkish origins, which, if had they landed on their targets, would have caused massive damage and loss of life. And therefore, for their yeoman service and exceptionally stellar acts during Operation Sindoor, this Air Defense Regiment was awarded several commendation medals by the Army Chief, commendation medals for gallantry.
When the call for Operation Sindoor came, the unit acted immediately, carried out swift mobilization and secured the vital areas of Rajasthan and Kutch sector. On 7th May 2025, all my troops were deployed and completely operational. The Army AD warriors, they showcased their excellent skills and precision by neutralizing the repeated enemy drone attacks and destroyed 5 Pakistani drones in this sector.
Here at a forward post in the Bhuj sector, these guns were activated and they played an instrumental role in detecting identifying, tracking and shooting down Pakistani unmanned aerial vehicles, or what we call in common parlance drones. Pakistan last year had sent out thousands of drones, and in this sector alone, Bhuj, there were about 100 drones, Chinese and Turkish drones, that were shot down by these armies' AL-70 guns, weighing about 4 tons, that is around 4,000 kgs. They have a range of 3.5 kilometers, and they can fire about 300 rounds per minute. The drones that were brought down are obviously very cheap, inexpensive drones, and therefore it is not suitable to bring them down with missiles. And that is where the L-70 gun of the Indian Army proved to be a workhorse in the Bhuj sector during Operation Sindoor. With camera person Vicky in Bhuj, this is Nandita Dagar for DD India.
And with this, it's a wrap here on DD India News Hour. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Deepika, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.
The gateway to Northeast India welcomes you to the land of untouched natural beauty and diverse history.